I've loved reading since as long as I can remember. Before I turned 3, I started trying to read books by myself, and by the time I was 4, I could truly read all on my own. Every Christmas and every birthday, among other things, I would always ask for books. I remember reading all of the Madeline books in the big chair in the corner of my bedroom. My sister and I would sit on either side of my mom while she read to us before bed. I was about 2 years old when my parents first started reading the Madeline books to me. I absolutely loved reading Madeline, and I enjoyed all of the other Madeline books by Ludwig Bemelmans. The original Madeline was my favorite book. I memorized all the words until I could recite them while turning the pages. Later on, when I was 3 or 4, I was truly able to read it all by myself. In fact, I love Madeline so much that I dressed up as her for Halloween 2 years in a row. When I read this story, I felt very secure and content. I distinctly remember looking at the illustrations of the old house in Paris covered in vines, and the 12 little girls in 2 straight lines. I think I appreciated how orderly everything was in Madeline's world. I also remember reading the opening lines of the story. Each book had a variation of a poem that was found at the beginning of the very first Madeline book. The story took me far away to a totally different environment in Paris. When I read Madeline, living in France and going to boarding school seemed very foreign to me. I thought it was very glamorous that the little girls got to wear fancy dresses with hats and pretty bows in their hair every day. I wasn't really able to see myself in the story. Madeline was more so a window into a world that was completely different from my own. The book Madeline made me wonder why the 12 little girls didn't live with their mom, dad, and siblings like I did. When I read this as a child, I wondered if the little girls ever missed their families like I would if I was away. When I was little, I was pretty different from Madeline. I was a shy girl, and I liked to sit quietly and read books or play with my Barbie dolls. I also loved to play outside with my older sister. My grandparents used to take us to the park all the time, where we would play on the slide and the swing set. I remember thinking that Madeline and the little girls were very different from me. Instead of living with their families, they were away at boarding school with Miss Clavel. Yet they were like a family. Miss Clavel was like a mother, and the little girls acted like sisters. When the little girls would fight with each other in the story, I was reminded of the bickering that went on between my sister and I. Also, Madeline had a dog that she loved, just like I did. Looking back on the story now, I can see that Madeline and I had much more in common than I ever thought.